12 seconds, you can start the meeting.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey,
Sorry, I was running late.
All right, let's begin. Notice is hereby given that due to the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and recent executive orders issued by the governor of the state of New York, the Town of Islip Zoning Board of Appeals hearing scheduled for Tuesday, July 7, 2020 at 6 p.m. will be held electronically via Zoom webinar instead of an in-person public hearing. It will be streamed live over the internet. Instructions on how to access the Zoom webinar and or live stream are available at the town's website, www.islipny.gov. Our first hearing tonight, number 383-20, Samuel Anakawa. Permission to establish a accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602, Residence B District, northeast corner of Ava Drive, number 189, and Pine Acres Boulevard, Bay Shore, New York. Is there someone here for the applicant?
Yes, there is. Let me get her and move her into the panel. Here she comes. Hold on, I have to switch my view. Anybody see Roxanne yet? There we go. There we go.
Hi.
Hey, Roxanne.
Hi, Roxanne.
Hello.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. We're here to establish an accessory apartment. The home is owner occupied. The apartment is within the 300 to 800 square feet. And there is an issue with the driveway. It doesn't have any problems with setbacks or driveway width. The engineering department just wanted them to repair a concrete curb, which they're doing, and then engineering will re-inspect.
Okay, so as long as engineering is good with it, once it's all done, then I assume we're good. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the application for a period of 3 years.
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, application granted. You have the
Next
next one?
application, number 384-20, Jose E. Reyes and Myrna N. Castellanos. Permission to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code, Section 68-602, with driveway having a width of 28.5 feet instead of permitted 18 feet, residence AA district, south side of Peralta Avenue, number 533.82 feet east of Joshua's Path, Central Islip, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Good evening again. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York.
Good evening.
Good evening. Looking to establish an accessory apartment. It is 679 square feet. It is owner occupied. And we're also here for the driveway for the width being 28.5 instead of the permitted 18.
What do we normally you guys come with a few of these before, Roxanne, correct?
Yes, usually we go up to 24 feet.
24. Your client willing to do that with?
Yes.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman. The 24-foot width that we have granted variances, is that the entire width or is that just at the apron?
It's been just at the apron.
That's what I recall. So why don't we just follow what we have done in the past?
Sure. That's what I was referring to. You okay with that?
Yes, we're good with that.
You okay with that, Mr. Wexler?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Chairman, move to grant the application for a period of 3 years, and with respect to the driveway, the width will only apply to the apron.
Second,
All in favor?
at 24 feet?
At 24 feet.
At 24 feet, yes.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Application granted.
All right,
Thank
next
you.
app-
Have a good
thank-
night.
You too. Next application number 385-20, Andrea D'Antonio. Permission to leave detached garage 20 feet by 25.8 feet, having a side yard of 4.1 feet instead of the required 10 feet. Residence AA District, north side of Michaelis Court, number 6, 110 feet west of Oak Neck Lane, West Islip, New York. Is anyone here for the app?
Yes, there is.
Yes, I'm here.
You here, Christine?
I'm here.
Okay. Christine, is your client here?
Say that again?
Is your client here for me to move over to panelist?
It's me. It's me.
Okay, okay. So no, it's just you. Okay,
Is my camera on? Can you see me? This is the first time I'm doing this.
okay. I'm going to ask you to start the video now. Here goes.
Start my video. Okay.
Here you go.
Beautiful. I think I'm on. So this is cool. I'm so happy to see everybody. This is Christine Fay from Active Expediting. This is at 286A Belmont Avenue, West Babylon, New York.
How are you tonight?
I am doing well. This is cool. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My client had constructed a detached garage with a proper building permit proposed under 500 square feet. It was never closed out. My client's house is currently sold, and I was hired to close out the permit. The as-built survey shows outside dimensions, which actually brought them to a little over 500 square feet. I would like the board to consider approving this application.
How much over 500 square feet is it?
It's like 14 square feet. The measurement was,
I think it's 16 because it's 20 by 25.8. So 20 by 25 would be 500. 20 times 0.8 is your difference.
Gotcha. So 16 feet over?
I think that's what it comes to, Mr. Chairman.
John, there is a letter in the file.
And we can't
that's
hear.
the 25 by 20.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fay, you cut out there for a second.
So the garage, when applied for in 2009, was 25 by 19.95. The actual survey is 25 by 20,
Well, the call is 25.8 by 20.
but 25.8, right? Sorry,
Okay,
25.8.
all right.
So this is a CO'd garage in the past, or he had a permit to build it, he's never closed it out?
We had a permit to build it. We're closing it out, and it turns out that the surveyor measured it outside dimensions. When he built it, he was under like 400 and something square feet, 490 something.
So because he's 16 feet over, it went from 4 to 10 feet, is that your argument?
Exactly.
And you're stating that, just for the record, that it went over because of the siding on the outside of it, is that what you're saying?
Yes, siding on the outside.
Siding was 16 full feet, huh?
Well,
Well, 8/10 of a foot on both sides. There you have it. And then it covers the whole building.
There was a neighbor that sent a letter in regarding they're not in favor of it, but 16 feet,
Well-
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
sure.
This seems to be the type of case that zoning was invented for.
Yep, gotcha. Understood. Understood. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Wecker, up for your motion.
I make a motion that we grant the application.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Application granted.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
have a great night. Thank you so much.
Number 386-20, Bayberry Capital LLC. permission to lease two-story dwelling with porch on lot having a width of 59.64 feet instead of the required 75 feet. Lot area of 7,044 square feet instead of the required 7,500 square feet. Side yard of 1.9 feet instead of required 14 feet. And a floor area ratio of 29.2 instead of permitted 25%. Residence A District, east side of West Avenue, number 73, 1,615.8 feet south of Montauk Highway, West Sable, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, there is.
Oh. Hi, it's Charles Ferraro. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. My name is Charles Ferraro, President, Principal of Bayberry Capital Group. If you remember, I think a little bit more than a year ago, we were here for this application back in April in 2019. We were granted the application. It's a very similar application. We were granted a building permit in late August 2019. We began construction and demolition of the project in late September, October. And while demoing and adding the addition, we determined that the structure and the foundation, the existing structure and foundation was not sound. At that time, we made a decision to continue with the construction and rebuild the foundation and continue, building the construction. At that time, we then went for our inspections. We had an inspection, and I was under the impression that we would be able to continue under the existing permit based on that we would put the house back in the same exact, we built it on top of the same exact footprint, foundation, FAR, everything was very similar. Needless to say, that wasn't the case, and Town of Islip had to start a complete new application with a building permit. Hence, that bringing me back to the ZBA here tonight.
Right, so you're still staying within all of the approval that we gave you from the April 2019 approval of your ZBA, correct?
Everything is exactly to the 10th of an inch.
Mr. Chairman, you have, I suspect, the prior approval in the file in front of you, is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so you can verify that if that's the case, right?
Yeah, but it's within a 10th of an inch, 1.8 instead of 1.9. We approved them last time, and 29.3 instead of 29.2. So everything else.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, application granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board. Have a good night, Mary.
Hi, John.
Next application number 387-20, Chrissy Garces and Jose R. Perez, permission to renew and transfer permit for accessory apartment to a subsequent property owner pursuant to section 68-616 and 68-618, Residence A District, southeast corner of Freeman Avenue, number 427, and Orange Street, Brentwood, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
I don't recognize a name yet in the panel for this applicant. I do have one call-in person and one saying owner. So if you are here to be heard on this, if you could raise your virtual hand. I think you hit *9, is that right, Tom, to raise a virtual hand?
Yes, that's correct.
*9 on your telephone will raise your virtual hand.
All right, Mr. Chairman, let's second call.
We'll try a second call on that one, yeah.
Thank you.
Second call.
All right. Next application, number 388-20, John and Nancy Bottom. Permission to renew and transfer permission for accessory apartment to a subsequent property owner pursuant to section 68-616 and 68-618. Residence A District East Side of Stephen Road, number 95, 1,782.2 feet north of Tucker Drive, Bayport, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nancy Badum and my address is 95 Stephen Road, Bayport, New York, 11705.
Are you here tonight? Good.
I'm sorry?
How are you tonight? Good.
I'm good. I got my hands full.
So you're here just to renew and transfer permit for the accessory apartment?
Yes,
You just purchased a home recently?
yes, last May. Well, a year ago.
Everything's in order?
Everything's in order.
Size of the apartment? Do you know the size of the apartment?
Oh, no, not off the top of my head. I don't have any of the paperwork in front of me. I'm sorry.
It's there in the file, Don, from the original, when they established the apartment.
Okay. Driveway is approved, everything complies. Great. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Chairman, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the application.
Second.
3 years?
For a period of 3 years.
For a period of 3 years. I apologize.
No problem. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Application granted, see you in 3 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next application number 389-20, Seth and Danielle Needleman. Permission to leave egress window having a side yard of 19.4 feet instead of the required 25 feet, and total side yards of 41 feet instead of the required 60 feet. Residence AAA District, east side of East Lane, number 37, 295.4 feet south of Middle Road, Bayport, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Just promoted him to panelist. There we go.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Seth Needleman, 37 East Lane, Bayport, New York, 11705.
How are you tonight, Mr. Nealman?
Very good, thank you. Yourself?
Good, thanks. You're here seeking permission to leave an egress window, side yard 19.4 instead of 25?
Correct.
Great, just for the basement, I'm assuming, right?
Correct, yes.
All right. Planning, Deirdre from planning, do you have any opposition?
No opposition. There's no precedent, but it's a minimal. No one's really would see it because it's in the ground. So no objections.
Right. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. Have a good night, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the board.
Next application number 390-20, Stephen B. Affelt, trustee of the Affelt Family Irrevocable Trust. Permission to leave driveway having a side yard of 2 feet instead of the required 4 feet. Residence A District, south side of Wyandotte Lane, number 14, 325 feet east of Matinacock Avenue, East Islip, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes,
sir.
Good evening. How are you tonight, sir?
Good. How are you? My name is Stephen Affelt. My office is located at 41 Leaside Drive, Great River, New York.
Right. And you have a driveway that's 2 feet instead of 4 feet, correct? Going down the side property line?
Correct. Yep.
We see that a lot. We see that as de minimis. Anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the application, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Application granted, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
He's on the next case.
Next
Oh.
application number 391-20,
Jason.
William B. Monahan, permission to install in-ground pool, leaving a rear yard of 14.9 feet instead of the required 18 feet. Residence AA District, south side of Kathy Lane, number 6, 124 feet west of Smithtown Avenue, Bohemia, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, sir. Good evening again. Stephen Affeld, office located at 41 Leaside Drive, Great River, New York.
And
Can
you
you
should have
still see my
stopped at the
video?
last. Now we can. Should have
Okay,
stopped
good.
at the last application, Mr. Affeld. You were ahead.
Oh, you know. So what we're, in this application, we're requesting permission to rebuild the existing pool that has a CO in its original location, being 14.9 feet off the rear yard setback.
Yep. It's on, so you're just rebuilding exactly where it is?
Exactly, yes.
And they brought you to the zoning board for that, huh?
It is what it is.
Crazy. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Messina, I'll take the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Case granted, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Next application, number 391-20, William B. Monahan. Oh, wait, I apologize. We just heard that. Number 392-20, Richard and Sharon DeAndrea. Permission to erect pool house with an attached roof over pavilion, 16 by 33.33 feet by 48.41 feet irregular, resulting in a floor area ratio of 27.01% instead of the permitted 25%. Residence A District, west side of Green Avenue, 792.81 feet north of Elm Street, Sayville. Is anyone here for the applicant?
I will, just to let the record show, I will be recusing myself on this file.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll take it from here. Do we have a representative for the applicant?
We do. I am just going to ask him to start his video and unmute.
Can everyone hear me?
Mr. Steisel? Yep,
Yes,
we can
sir.
hear you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Diego Steisel, architect, offices at 1101 Waverly Avenue in Holtzville. I am the representative for the applicant, and I'm also their architect. We're here seeking the FAR of 27.01 for this proposed pool house. If you take a look at the neighborhood, which I did extensively, there's a lot of big homes, a lot of large FARs in this area, so we feel that this proposal.
Why couldn't you make it comply?
Well,
I'm just kidding, Mr. Steisel, I'm just kidding.
The
It's
pool
the
house
minimus.
has
It's fine.
more.
It's the minimus. I'm just kidding. All right, does the board have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, is there anyone from the audience who wishes to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to
Nicole,
grant the application.
Sullivan, thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The record reflected the chairman has recused himself and an application granted. Thank you, Mr. Steisel.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Good.
Next application, and we're safely back into the hands of the chairman. Number 393-20. Darius Muskrowski, permission to erect one-story detached garage leaving a height of 28.6 feet instead of the permitted 18 feet, and front yard through lot of 10 feet instead of the required 50 feet, to erect detached structures, storage bins, leaving a front yard through lot of 10 feet instead of the required 50 feet, and to install fence, leaving a height of 7.08 feet instead of the permitted 6 feet, not having a front yard of 15 feet. And an interpretation is requested as to whether the proposed storage bins constitute outside storage, Industrial 1 District, north side of Livingston Street, number 11, 329 feet west of Saxon Avenue through lot to Herkimer Street, Bay Shore, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, we have several people here.
For the applicant?
Yeah, for the applicant. Now, I have two Brian Kennedys, Brian, so I think one of you is the real Bill Benesso, correct? Oops, sorry, hold on. hold on, Vic,
There's,
give me a
there's an,
second.
hang on, there's an Alfred Sutton that's appearing on my screen.
Yeah.
Could you,
That-
could you
that's-
make his microphone live, please?
I'm trying. Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay, there he is.
Mr.
Am I good?
Sutton?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're an architect, correct?
Yes, I am. AM Sutton Associates. I'm in Miller Place at
Okay.
278 North Country Road.
Thank you.
Evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to recuse myself on this application.
Not a problem, sir. Mr. Vecina is recused.
Thank you very much.
Reflect that. How are you tonight, sir?
I just have to move the attorney in as well because, sorry, there we go. Now I have both Brian Kennedys in. I hope one of them is Vanessa.
Good evening.
Hold on, John, give me 1 second.
Mary, can you hear me?
That's Bill. We can hear you, we just can't see you yet. I'm asking you to start the video. There we go. Okay.
Mary, that's me, but Bill should be connected.
Oh, this is Brian Kennedy.
Correct.
Okay, did he come in as Brian Kennedy as well?
I also called in audio as well.
Oh, okay, so let's get rid of that other one. Okay. And I don't know if Bill's having some trouble.
Can you see me, Mary? Or...
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, great.
And we have your client, we have Darius, we have Al. Now let me just go back to the attendees and see if it seems as if Bill is one of these attendees. I have owner. He could possibly be owner. Let's see who owner is.
I don't know how to work this. What are you eating?
Oh, you know what? Brian, what was your phone call-in number? Can you just tell me the phone number?
Hello. I'll let him know now. Mary, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Can you hear us?
So there are 3 phoned-in people who, if they want me to be able to chat with them and move them from attendee to panelist, they have to raise their virtual hand.
How are you, Bill?
Star 9.
No, I can't get on either. Mary, can you hear me?
We can
We
hear
can
you.
hear
sir.
you really
Yeah,
clearly.
I
You
see
can't
it.
hear us?
No,
Yeah.
I can hear you now. Bill just called me. He's attempting to get in. You can't hear him, but he's in there.
So do we need Bill for this application, or you want to proceed by your?
I think we do.
We do need Bill.
Let me see. something.
You guys hear if I'm here or not?
We can hear you, Chris.
We can hear you, Chris. I hit the better before when we couldn't.
7
Somebody
He might do better to call in.
Well, is the problem being negotiated? Otherwise, we could sit here all night.
We could, this,
He's attempting to get in.
this application will take a little while. I don't know if it's worth it.
How are you,
to-
Bill?
No, that's,
Okay, I'll let him know.
Can
He's
we
a-
go on to something else?
He's going to attempt to log back in. He can see and hear everything that's going on, but for some reason, his feed is not registering with you.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, do we want to proceed or move on?
It's up to the applicant if they want us to skip them for another one or two and see if he can get in. Or if he wants to proceed without the gentleman, Bill, I believe his name is, that can't get in.
I could describe the project as the architect. I have another hearing at 7, so I have an incentive, another hearing.
So then let's start.
Yeah.
So if it's okay with you guys, we'll proceed without the other gentleman. Is that okay?
He could probably show up while we're, getting the sense of what we're talking about.
It's completely up to you all. So you let me know and we'll start right now.
I think that's a yes.
That's a yes. The gentleman down below, I don't know his name. I can't see his name on the screen. Is he willing to move forward? Because he wasn't willing a few moments ago. Harry, who's the gentleman down?
Darius.
That's Darius down below?
I don't know if he displays down below for me too.
He looked a little smaller version of me.
Oh, no, that's Brian Kennedy.
That's
Oh,
me.
Brian Kennedy. All right, yeah.
Wow. I'm not going near that one.
We need to wait for Bill. So he's
Let's
going
move on.
to.
Mr. Chairman, let's move on. Well, Bill could be 20 minutes. This is killing us. Let's move on. We'll come back to it next.
We'll come back to you. How about Mary? Will you be able to we'll move to the next one, then we'll come back once Bill can get in?
Sure, I have to sweep them all out, so give me a second. I'm getting swept out now, Brian.
All right.
All right, in the meantime, I'll call the next application, Mr. Chairman. Number 394-20, Kenneth and Doreen Taylor. Permission to erect 1 and 2nd story additions, leaving side yards of 18.5 feet and 20.3 feet instead of the required 25 feet each. Total side yard of 38.8 feet instead of the required 60 feet. Residence AAA District, west side of West Lane, number 38, 1295.05 feet north of Okanee Walk, Bay Shore, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant? Anyone here for the applicant?
Anyone here, man?
Yeah, they were here and I moved them in. I mean, I numbered them. Oh, there we go. Hold on one second. They're in as a panelist and asked to start video. There we go. Are you with us, Mr. Taylor?
Good evening. Mr. Taylor, you with us? Is anyone here on Kenneth and Doreen Taylor?
I see Mr. Taylor, but I can't hear him.
Mr. Taylor, can you hear us? Give us a thumbs up if you can.
Oh,
okay.
You know what? He could possibly have an architect present.
It says Bowler is on the.
Okay,
Fine.
okay. Let's see who is. That might be T. Gardner. Oh, okay. Mr. Taylor, we need your architect to identify themselves, what name they zoomed in under in the attendee list.
It says on my notes Bowler RA. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Any of you co-hosts want to write these mysterious names and try to help me, I'd appreciate it. Deirdre, did you prepare research on this application of Kenneth and Doreen Taylor?
Yes, I do. I have researched it.
Mr. Taylor, you can hear us? Can you nod your head? Yes, okay. What do you think? Can Deirdre tell us about the application, everyone?
Sure.
There is plenty of precedent for the side yards. There's side yards 17.1, 18, 19. And it does seem like the second story addition is in line, I believe, with the first floor. So that's just kind of keeping in line with it. And the new one-story front yard addition, is it front yard? Seems again like it's in line with the side yard. It's just not parallel with the lot line.
Yeah, but the problem is if the second story is in line with the first story, right? The setbacks for 2 stories are greater, right? And that's because of a privacy concern, correct?
Right. Well, they're asking for 18.5 instead of 25, I believe, and there is
Okay.
for the second story.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part, or I misunderstood it. I
The
apologize.
same footprint. That's what
Okay.
more so.
Yeah, I mean, the existing footprint does no good though, if, because that's, it doesn't matter. There's precedent for the variance. I understand. Thank you.
At one point, Mr. Messina, on the property, the side yard is 12.3 and it's the existing 2-story on it.
No, I understand. I understand.
Okay, great. So planning has no objection to some precedent area?
Yep, no objections.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? I don't know if Mr. Nicolia is here, but Mr. Nicolia, I'll take a motion.
In his absence, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. If you can hear us, have a great night.
Next application, or are we going back?
We going back to Darius?
Ms. Becerra?
Bill Benesso just called my desk phone. He's trying to come in with my link, Tom, from IT. So if you see me try to come in again.
Well, yeah, you'll come in, you'll see your name come in. That's not
Okay.
opposed.
Okay.
So then let's call the next application while we're waiting for him. Number 395-20, Sarah Burgos, permission to erect 1-story addition 10.5 feet by 43.9 feet, leaving a front yard of 30 feet instead of the required 40 feet and side yard of 13.8 feet instead of the required 18 feet. Residence AA District 278 Cluster, west side of South Cardinal Court, number 8, 81.31 feet south of Prospect Place, East Islip. Is there anyone here for the applicant?
There is. I'm asking her to start her video right now. Sarah, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sarah Burgos, 8 South Cardinal Court, Bay Shore.
How are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you.
East
The
Islip?
initial plan that was submitted were for an extension on the side of the house, and plans have changed. I'm no longer interested in doing the extension. Those plans are no longer valid.
So you're not you don't want to do anything to your house? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe something else later on.
Okay.
But not the extension on the side of the house, no.
You withdrawing your application for tonight is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Make a motion to withdraw the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms.
Have a great
President.
night. When you get ready to come back, give us a call and get back on schedule.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Mr. Sarah, where do we stand on 393?
Hold on. Does anybody see me appearing in the attendee?
Yes, yes. Just type in Mary.
Terrific. There we go. You might not want to call him Mary. You might want to change him to William Bonesso, Bonesso. Somebody can do that.
Can everyone hear me?
Eric, can you spell that again for me, please?
Now, you know what? Let's let Bill tell us, okay? Hi, Bill.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, how are you tonight?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. William Bonesso for Kelly Deegan Tarana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York, here on behalf of the applicant in connection with the premises at 11 Livingston Street in Bay Shore in the town of Islip.
Can you just spell the last name for me, please?
Pardon?
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
Surely, it's B as in boy, O, N as in Nancy, E, S, S, O.
Thank you.
Let me first apologize. I don't know why the technical difficulty occurred. I've had at least 24 Zoom meetings on this computer and don't know why this is the first time I couldn't get through. So I apologize for the delay.
It happens.
I am speaking in reference to the application for this property at 11 Livingston. With me also this evening are the owner and applicant, Darius, and Mr. Al Sutton. He is the architect on the project. The board may recall that this site and this applicant were the subject of a hearing back in September of last year. That application was pertaining to the office building on the premises. It's a converted dwelling that is now used as an office building. And it was in connection with relief needed pertaining to an abandonment for Livingston Street, the portion of Livingston Street south of the client's property, which is undeveloped. At that time, specific relief was needed to accommodate the abandonment, and the applicant was going on to the site plan review. The board granted that relief, and but in doing so, during the hearing, on multiple occasions, it was brought up that during site plan review, if there was new relief needed, additional relief needed, that the matter would be back before the board. And surely enough, here we are back before the board. Since that hearing, we have gone to the planning board. There was a hearing before the planning board at which a site plan was reviewed. There were items that needed to be addressed, including drainage, including handicap parking, and more recently, in relation to the abandonment on Livingston Street, which the Highway Department wanted the proposed abandonment modified. Originally, the portion of Livingston Street that is east or west of the easterly property line was all going to be abandoned. That's the end of the roadbed. But the Highway Department wanted the road to continue 50 feet west of that easterly property line, so that they'd have a place to put snow and have their plows be able to maneuver and the like in order to negotiate Livingston Street. So our site plan changed in connection with that. We also did some other things resulting from meetings we had with the Department of Engineering and the Planning Department. At the time and at the last hearing, the northerly street, Herkimer, was also going to be the subject of an abandonment. Prior to the last hearing before the zoning board, the northerly portion of Herkimer Street had already been abandoned by the town. The southerly portion was going to be abandoned and was going to be joined to my client's parcel in order to add an additional 25 feet of depth to the north. We were we were advised by the town attorney's office of the desire on the part of the town that we forego the Herkimer Street abandonment, basically to accommodate the prospective sale of the lot to the north of ours, which is owned by the town, to a private party, and to keep, in order to keep an access way to provide access to that road, to that parcel. So we looked at that and we revised our site plan again, and that resulted in the site plan that you see before you this evening. While the prior zoning board application pertained to the office building, this one really pertains to the accessory structures that are proposed for the site and to some fencing. There is a one-story masonry frame storage garage situated in the northeast corner of the property. That, in addition to a height variance being sought for that, it's at 28 feet, 28.6 feet in height, whereas 18 is permitted for an accessory structure.
Do you have any precedent for the height you're requesting in the area?
There are, I mean, just if you take a ride around the area, this is an entirely industrial area. If you take a look around, you'll see a number of structures taller than the permitted 18 feet in terms of accessory structures.
I understand the area well. I just wanted to know, do you have any that the town or this board has approved for that height on a accessory detached garage?
Not in this area. No, I do not have any specific examples. With that said, a review of the area, this is completely surrounded by industrially developed properties, but for the property to the west, which is really wetlands, and there's no residential development anywhere around here. The setback requirement for that accessory structure, which we require a 10-foot setback variance from our northerly property line, which is now going to remain a front yard setback because of our foregoing the abandonment on Herkimer. If that had been abandoned, we would have a 35-foot deep rear yard, which would not have required a variance at all. So the variance on our north side is really to accommodate request to forego the Herkimer abandonment. That also applies to the location of the storage bins. Originally, they were going to be on the portion of Herkimer that we were going to obtain as a result of the abandonment. We since relocated them to the northwest portion of the property, and they're set off 10 feet, and that requires a variance. The fencing that is requested.
Has anyone else lost the applicant?
7.8 foot height as opposed to 6 foot height, and that's required because it's within 15 feet of the setback. Again, because of the abandonment of the Herkimer Street, or the foregoing the Herkimer Street abandonment, we are within the 15 feet. And then the last thing we're asking for is an interpretation in connection with the storage shed that we provided the board with plans for, which shows it's a fixed roof structure with gates, and all the materials to be stored in there will be stored within the structure. We're asking for an interpretation that structure be deemed to eliminate the interpretation that it be outdoor storage. I'm going to have Mr. Sutton speak more directly to the design and makeup of the buildings. But those are the forms of relief that we're seeking this evening. We have, as indicated, had several meetings with planning and with engineering. This plan seems to be one that they are prepared to accept. Being said, we will be going on. There was a hearing at the planning board for site plan review. Hearing was held and decision reserved. We will be going back to planning, and if they require anything else, we will certainly make every attempt to accommodate it. We've also secured DEC approval for the plan as presently proposed because of the wetlands to our west and south. We had to secure that. That was issued back in May of 2020. I provided Ms. Pissarro with a copy of that permit. And we think that assuming we can obtain the relief being requested from this board this evening, that we'll be able to go to planning and accommodate them in terms of site plan approval, and then proceed on to make the improvements to the site. Now, unless the board has any questions of me, I'd like to have Mr. Sutton provide his testimony in connection with the proposed structures.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I have a couple questions for Mr. Bonasso. Bonasso?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Because I'm having
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm having a problem with connection. You guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Because I can't see anyone. Everyone. Although the video is out.
I have you coming in and out.
Yeah, just went out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still up.
I'm having a problem with the video, but if you guys can hear me, I'm okay with it.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. All right. If I may, Mr. Chairman, you good? I guess he can't hear me. John?
I'm good. I can hear you. I just can't see anyone. I got the court reporter now. That's it.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I'm having trouble hearing you. It's coming in.
Can you hear
sporadic.
me?
I can hear you just fine, Mr. Wexler.
So why don't I suggest, Bill, why don't you ask your questions, Mr. Wexler? And John, how about you log out and back in again?
John, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Okay.
He's frozen. He looks good like that. Looks thoughtful. He looks like he's about to say something. All right, then, let's move on. I think he's logging out and logging back in. All right. Mr. Bonasso, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just preliminarily, in your application, you seek an interpretation.
Right.
All right, so that's not something we can do tonight. You understand that?
If I might, I could offer some testimony to help with that.
You know what? I didn't ask you. I'm telling Mr. We'll get to you in a minute. I'm just saying, Mr. Bonasso, we can't make an interpretation on the fly.
It was a noticed request for an interpretation.
Yeah, but when are we going to make it? I mean, just so you understand, you said, I listened to what you said, and you said about making a decision tonight. We're not going to be able to make a decision tonight.
Oh, let me rephrase that. I'd like you to hear our position on this tonight.
Okay.
We will make our arguments to support an interpretation that our use of the bins does not constitute outdoor storage.
Okay.
But if you can't make it tonight, I understand that you need to reserve decision and.
Yeah, we need to take a contemplative moment and study it. Okay, that's preliminarily.
I'm sorry for the phrase.
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
That was not my intention.
That's okay. Second, we heard this application in September.
Correct.
And what we heard, we granted. However, part of the grant was, and I remember this specifically, I remember it was Joe Bazell, and we were concerned, me and I believe some of the other members were concerned about the garage. And we said, I remember specifically asking him, you're going to need a variance for that garage. And he was, told me that it was, I'm looking at notes, completely conforming. Well, it's not. And we knew it wasn't. So
actually, it was conforming at that time for a couple of different reasons. First of all, back then, the property to the north was going to be abandoned, and there would no longer have been, this no longer would have been a through lot. That would have been our rear yard. And as a result of it being our rear yard, a 25-foot setback would have been required, and there would have been a 35-foot setback.
Right.
So the setback variance would not have been required. I believe at that time also, the height of the structure was different and it was compliant, but it was always intended to be in the present location. It was only after the decision to forego the Herkimer Street abandonment at the behest of the town that created the setback variance that we needed, because it was no longer a rear yard. It was still a through lot front yard.
Okay. Well, that's one thing I need to keep in mind. The second is something that seems to me critical is you are seeking a height of the accessory structure of 28.6 when only 28 is allowed.
18
That's-
is allowed. 18 is allowed.
18. So by my rough math, that's 50% variance. Okay. And there's no prior approvals
No prior approvals on this
from
site?
this board granting anything over 18 feet.
I'm not saying that there isn't. I just.
Well, did you look? Did you study?
No, I did not take a look at the other accessory structures in the area. I just.
Well, that's something that's
visually I did. Visually
that's
I did.
critical for us to know,
I can
because you
provide
are
that
seeking a 50% relaxation. And were there no previous grants, we would be changing the nature and character of that neighborhood to now 28.6. You would agree?
I would agree, and I
be
can take a
impressive.
look at that and provide that supplemental information.
Okay. And then also on the front yard setback, again, I'm reading what I have. It's 10 feet instead of 50.
Correct.
Again, that's extremely substantial. What do we have for support?
It is substantial, but again, it's literally because we were willing to forego the Herkimer Street abandonment at the behest of the town. So there's a special circumstance here.
I know, but I understand a bit, but not completely. Whether you forego or not at the behest of the town, we're still left with a structure that has a front yard of 10 feet instead of 50. Whatever the machinations that the town and your client have worked out, we're still left with a structure that is 80% relaxation.
Yeah,
How do
it is
we
an
wrap our
80%.
heads around that? And how do we then deny somebody who only wants a 75% relaxation? Do we say, oh, no, you understand, go see the, whatever the guy's name, Michael Kaczynski application, they had, how do we get around that? We're still going to have a structure where the code does not permit.
I can supplement that information as well then. I will take a look at other properties in the area to determine if there have been other setback variances to that effect. I believe there have been. There are a number of buildings on that roadway that are certainly not 50-foot setback, but I will review that.
Okay.
Mr. Vanessa, Mr. Wexler, if Deirdre can hear me, can everyone hear me? Because I'm back in now. I can see you guys and hear you guys. We all good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Deirdre, can you put up the, maybe an aerial of the area and share it with us? I know you have the site plan on here. Maybe that helps Mr. Wexler with a little, more ground to cover there.
Yep, I have.
Yeah, that actually does illustrate that if you look on the.
Oh.
If you look on the south side of Livingston, there's a building that is right up on the property line. Also on the south side of Herkimer, there's also a building that appears to be extremely close to the front, to what would be its front yard. on
Excuse
her-
me 1 second. I'm sorry. DJ, are we supposed to be looking at something?
Yeah, do you not see it?
I don't see it.
I see it. I definitely see it on mine.
You see it?
I don't, nope, I don't see it. I see
Yeah.
Dan. I see his daggers.
I see it.
I'm the only one who doesn't. All right, then.
So, Mr. Vanessa, as Mr. Wexler said prior to, I caught it, came in half of it because I had to reset my Wi-Fi.
Now I see it.
You know, we're gonna need some possible permitted structures in the area to help with your argument of this frame storage garage.
Sure.
On that. My other concern is, and Deirdre, is there any precedent for height in the area that the applicants are
I
asking?
don't find any height precedent.
Okay. All right. And I just have one quick question too. One set of site plans I have here shows a covered material storage bin. And then another set of plans I have here has a storage bin, but it appears it has doors on it, a roof. It's completely finished like another detached structure.
That's correct. That was the evolution of the outdoor storage bins, which the owner agreed to enclose and to meet the state definition of an enclosure, which is obviously walls, doors, and a roof. And so we initially had one variation where we were showing the roof, and it was deferred to the actual enclosure had to comply with the code definition of enclosure, and therein we provided completely designed interior structure.
But that appears to be another structure, another detached structure, not an enclosed storage bin.
It's definitely it has all the in terms of the cribbing, high push wall inside. You back up a dump truck, dump on the ground, push it all in, and then you can use a bobcat or some other device to pull it out. So essentially it's to allow storage of construction material without being exposed to, to the neighbor visually in any way. So they're in an enclosed space.
But does this property weight zone permit that storage?
As long as
I'll
it's
leave
not
that
outdoor
up to
storage.
Bill. I don't see.
It doesn't limit the number of accessory structures you can have, but it does prohibit outdoor storage.
Outdoor storage.
So by creating the structure that Mr. Sutton has designed with a fixed roof, with gates, qualifying it as an enclosure, we believe, and this is the interpretation we're requesting, we believe that it does away with any potential consideration of it being outdoor storage.
Can I, I'm sorry, John, did I interrupt you?
Just one more quick second, Ms. Wexler.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I believe last time the other applicant was here for this application, I remember someone throwing around possibly a change of zone. If you had a change of zone, this would all be, the outside storage would be permitted, no?
That would be correct, Mr. Chairman. But there has been so much time and frankly, my client's dollars spent on this process with going to planning, modifying the site plan, first preparing the plan based upon the change of the abandonment on Livingston to accommodate the highway department, then modifying it for Herkimer. And then really the first time the question of the outdoor storage came up was with our latest submission and denial letter. We frankly felt that to start the process now of going to the town board to rezone the property would be a significant time and cost expense as well. We thought instead, if we provide a structure that truly encloses the materials that would be kept in the storage shed, we could instead ask for an interpretation, because we obviously know that asking for a use variance for outdoor storage would very likely not be well received. So consequently, my client has agreed to construct a structure that would enclose the stored materials and fully qualify as an enclosure to avoid the outdoor storage label.
Are you finished, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Bonesso, I'm a little at 6s and 7s in that, is it an enclosure or is it a structure? Are they one and the same, or you're saying that they're different animals? Is it a structure or is it an enclosure?
Al, you wanna address that?
Sure, it's it's semantically the same thing. An
So why don't you call it a
enclosure-
structure? Is there a reason that you don't want to call it a structure? Does that create?
No, there's no reason, actually. No
Then let's
reason.
call it a structure. We don't know
Okay.
we don't talk in terms of enclosures. We talk in terms of structures. If it's got
Yes.
walls and a roof, it's a structure.
It's got walls and a roof, correct.
All
We
right,
can-
so now that we know it's a structure, let's forget about enclosure. As a structure, do you need any zoning board approval to put it where you want to put it?
Oh, yes, we need the same 10-foot setback variance to the north that we are asking for the 10-foot setback on the storage garage.
But you
10
have,
foot
according to
in-
your site plan, you have 10 foot, no? Oh, no, you haven't moved up on a new site plan. You haven't moved up. I see.
10 feet instead of, what do you have?
Instead of
proposed?
50, it would be another front.
Yes,
I know,
it's
but
another
what-
front yard setback.
I don't see it. Oh, I see. It's
The new
10,
site plan is Wexler.
what?
Not the
Yeah.
one that's on the screen right here, the other site plan has
Right.
it up against the northerly property line, just like the one-story masonry storage garage.
So instead of this, the code requires 10 feet. What are you proposing for the structure?
The code requires 50 feet.
Oh, 50 feet and you have 10 feet.
And we have 10 feet.
Do you have any authority for that?
It's again, the same justification that we were using before.
Okay, you said that.
Right, but
you heard my response to that. You're gonna, if you're going to,
we'll provide some evidence with regard to other setbacks in the area that have been approved. And again, from the aerial photograph that was pulled up before, you could see at least 2 structures, one on the south side of Livingston to the east of the property, and one on the south side of Herkimer to the east of the property, that are both look to have far less than 50 foot of setback. But we will get the records on those buildings and provide those to the zoning board.
and let me just follow up. I remembered from the last application, going through my mind was that, and I understand you don't want to go through the time, expense, and aggravation of a change of zone. However, that doesn't alleviate good zoning practice. What was going through my mind was that essentially you're seeking a de facto change of zone. You want us to grant through the zoning board what really necessarily has to come through the town board. You want all of the indicia of industrial 2 when you don't have it. And I remember my exact thoughts were, this is a de facto change of zone. And that's why the town has industrial 1 and industrial 2. If we start treating and giving variances for industrial 1 that allow it industrial 2, then we make no more distinction. We're permitting, if not outdoor storage, then structures right up on the property line or very close. We're doing away with the very elements that separate the two. That's what That's what concerned me in last September. And I guess it still sticks with me. So maybe you would like to, since you're going to be addressing this, I would invite any comments, please.
Excuse me, Bill, I need to go to my other hearing now. I hope thank you, board members. I appreciate I see, do you need me for anything else at this moment?
Mr. Sutton is at the Village of Head of the Harbor, and he's got a hearing, a live physical hearing that he has to attend. But I think he's provided his testimony in connection with the storage structure.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Sutton.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
I have a bit of an issue with the interpretation that we're asked to give, whether proposed storage bins constitute outside storage. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm not sure I know what the difference is, because you're doing the same thing, but just putting a roof over it and a sliding door, right? You said you were pumping stuff in it and pushing it in with a payloader or whatever. You're closing the door. Does that constitute outside storage other than just having a pull down door? Roof?
Well, it wouldn't be, it's not outside, it's contained within a structure. I mean, that would seem to me to satisfy the requirement.
I'm not understanding the description of storage bins.
And if
There
sorry,
are bins within the structure. They are.
So it's a structure and the bins are inside the structure.
Yes, they're inside the structure.
But you're storing heavy material, which is allowed not in industrial 1. That's what you're storing.
It just sounds to me like you're trying to avoid the outside storage requirement and you're trying to avoid the structure requirement by just calling it storage bins.
No, we're not looking to avoid it being considered a structure. A structure, an accessory structure, 1, 2 accessory structures are permitted in the zone. What we are trying to avoid is the classification of outdoor storage, and by placing the materials in a structure, we think it satisfies that interpretation.
I've just never heard anything referred to as storage bins. It's either a storehouse or a structure, or it's not. A storage bins is like, I don't know what that is.
We deal with structures. We deal with structures.
If you want to call them storage compartments within the structure, that would be an accurate description.
But we don't deal with, we deal in terms of structures. I don't know what, I'm kind of flummoxed too, what a storage bin or storage component as part of it's a structure. It's like when people say, oh, I have the Florida room, that's a structure. So I think we already established it's a structure.
It's a barn or a shed, that's what it is.
It's a structure that contains 4 separate storage areas, all gated.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Benesso. Is storage of construction material allowed in industrial 1?
As I understand it, if it's within a structure, it's permitted.
Okay, let me just ask you, with that statement, your understanding, when we all say it's my understanding, it's kind of like based on the ether. Where do you get that understanding? Have you looked, read, seen something from the zoning, from the planning, something from land use treatises? What is it that gives you because I just don't know. We've never seen this before. What gives you the understanding that if you put something that you can't store in industrial 1 in a structure, then it becomes okay? It may be. I'm just saying, what is it that you base that statement on? And not just tell me your understanding. What is it based on?
My reading of the permitted and accessory uses in the industrial 1.
And what does it say, industrial 1?
I would ask, since Ms. Ryan is there, if she could opine on that. I don't have that section open in front of me.
Well, then paraphrase what it says. You said that it says it in the code industrial 1. Paraphrase what you believe allows construction material. If you put it in a structure, it's okay. What is it? Paraphrase the section, because I just don't know what it is.
As I recall the section that I've reviewed, it doesn't say that there's not a specific indication that you can store materials inside a building, but what it does say is that you're not entitled to have outdoor storage of materials or equipment that is not within a structure or a principal building. So I can provide you with the specific code language, but I don't have it in front of me.
Mr. Benesso, Mr. Lux, if you don't mind, I'm also
yes, go ahead.
in the file here, and I see your DEC approval, your client's DEC approval for just the one-story masonry storage garage, 3,600 square feet. I'd have to assume if we were to interpret this structure of outside storage, whatever you guys want to call it, storage bins, you would have to get DEC approval? No, it's not on this approval.
The DEC approval the plan that was provided to the DEC did include the storage structure. It was in the different location, which was north on the property that was going to be the abandoned property on Herkimer, but it did include the structure.
But they were open. They were open bays. They weren't this enclosed storage bins that you're talking about now in this area.
Correct. But we will be going back to DEC to show them the current plan to secure an updated permit.
So how come, and I'm not sure why, so maybe you can enlighten me on this, because I don't know what I would think that should have been done prior to you coming here, no? So you come here with saying DEC approved it, they approved the 3,600.
Frankly, it's because when we went to the DEC with the plan that was approved, that was before we were given a denial that indicated that we had an issue with outdoor storage.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask Deirdre Ryan from the plan department to give her take on this application. Are you okay with that? Or you want to say on the record? Excuse me, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I have no problem with that.
Okay. Deirdre, can you, I'm sure you have a lot to say. You've been sitting there nice and quietly.
So I spoke with a few people in my office, just going through this to make sure that I understood it amongst all the different stages it went through. We did recommend the change of zone because of the outdoor storage that's allowed in industrial 2 and it's not allowed in industrial 1. With how it was first presented, it was caught as outdoor storage, just as open bays that trucks can pick up whatever the materials are in the separations. But what's being shown more recently with siding and roof and doors, we don't count that as outdoor storage because it's a structure like you said. So with regard to the part of the call asking for their interpretation, we don't agree with that. We don't want storage bins to be considered outdoor storage for it to be allowed. I'm sorry.
Wait, say that again. You skipped.
Sorry. The way it's presented in the call of the meeting where it's saying interpretation of outdoor storage bins to be allowed as outdoor storage, we don't agree with that. We don't, we want.
What, you don't agree with the call of the calendar?
Well, not so much that just because they're showing two different things. So first they were showing bays, it was ran up as storage bins, and then now they're showing a structure. It seems a little confusing. If you want storage bins outside, we don't agree with that. We don't think that there should be storage bins just out in the open outside. That is outdoor storage, and there's a reason it's not allowed in industrial 1. But if it is going to be in the enclosed structure that they more recently showed with a roof, with sidings, with doors, then that's a structure, so they're allowed to store things inside. So that's kind of where we're kind of confused what the actual plan is, I guess. Are you going to build the structure with the siding and the roof and the doors? Because then I don't think you need the interpretation because it's a structure, it's not outdoor storage.
Yes, the intention is to build that structure. If we don't need the interpretation, then we'll withdraw the request for the interpretation. But we felt that the structure would do away with any consideration of the uses being outdoor storage.
As long as it's showing, as long as the intention is to build the structure that is enclosed and has, like I said, siding, door, and roof, that's not outdoor storage.
Fine.
And so with the rest of the application, do you have any other,
So with the rest of the application, we were kind of okay with the 10-foot front yard just because it is a through lot, and that kind of does seem like something that's been granted in the past with through lots. And then,
so planning is okay with the 10-foot?
right, because it will be closed off soon. The northern property is being sold from what I understand, and they're gonna be taking over that part of the road, closed just kind of like Livingston is closed in front of this property. So it's more gonna be like a 10-foot rear yard than a 10-foot front yard. But that's not the biggest concern. Again, the garage does seem a bit high, but I'm a little confused why it's a garage and not a warehouse either, because that might help more with the height. And the fence, I don't really understand why it can't be 6 feet. I kind of missed that part. I don't know if you skipped out or.
Can I interrupt you 1 second, Deirdre? Can we go back to the statement you just made regarding the garage? You're saying that if it were a warehouse, the height would be?
It might be able to, but I'm not entirely too sure. I'm just kind of confused why it's specified as a garage and not just a structure. I don't know. I think I'm not sure of the code exactly, but there might be a difference in what's allowed with the height. I can try and look it up quickly, but that I would just.
Deidre, is a warehouse allowed to be 28 feet? I mean, do they get more by calling it a warehouse as opposed to a garage, or?
I have to check. I'm not too sure. I think they might though, but I'm not too sure about that. I can check quickly though.
Well, you know what? We're going to reserve, I believe, on this anyway, so. But do you find any precedent for granting 28 instead of 18, whatever it's called?
No,
I don't
not
think so.
for that, no.
And if it was industrial too, what would be the height restriction?
I
I know
think
you don't
they're allowed-
carry
I
stuff
don't know
around
off
in
the
your
top of
head.
my
I
I
know
think
you're good, but
I think they're allowed a higher
Yeah.
height that they can go to because it's industrial too. So it's generally more of I guess more they can do whatever they want now.
more onerous use of land. Getting back to, they're really treating, they want us to treat this as a de facto industrial too, rather than a change of zone.
I interpret the industrial 1, industrial 2 as a lighter use and a heavier use. And
Sure.
And that's where I think Mr. Benesso for his client is trying to advocate, saying that, you know, I know it's industrial 1, which is lighter use, but we want to kind of utilize it for this partially industrial 2.
Again,
To be frank, that's.
I would indicate that, and I did come to this application after it had already, this project, after it had already undergone a number of reviews by the town, and then picked it up where it was. I probably, if the client had come to me on day 1 and said, what should I do? I would have probably told him rezone the property. But because he's come so far with his reviews, with the applications, with the processes, with the different departments, and we seem to have a site plan that is mostly acceptable to planning, is acceptable to engineering, is acceptable to highway. We're asking for the relief at this point so that we don't have to, so that I don't have to make the client basically start from scratch. The cost and time of an I-1 to I-2 rezoning. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Wexler. I realize that that you can look at it as we're asking the board to grant legislative relief instead of administrative relief. But if you look at it from the standpoint of if we're now doing away with the need for an interpretation because we are a structure, if we have prior precedent for front yard setbacks of 10 feet or less, we're within that administrative relief that would be authorized.
Not for the fence and not for the height.
Not necessarily for the height. I understand that, but as you've noted, since we're reserved here, I'm going to look at that and see if there's some different interpretation that a warehouse would receive, and why this isn't
Mr. Vanessa,
identified
do
as a
you
warehouse.
would you, and I'm just putting this out there, we have to vote on a vote. Would you rather take an adjournment and do some research and come back, or do you want us to reserve and give you no adjournment, Mr. Wexler? You're not?
Yeah, why don't we, I mean, we know the facts.
Okay.
We know the facts.
Yeah, I would say a reserved decision, but I would like to be able to supplement the information that I find.
Sure.
So how long do you need? 30 days?
Absolutely, that's fine.
And then at that point, we got to see if anyone wants to be heard this application still. But at that point, as you know, we have 62 days from that point of 30 days to render a decision. Is that something you're willing to accept?
Yes, sir.
All right. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Mary, is there anyone who's willing to wants to be heard?
There was a neighbor. I did move them into panel. Let's see if they. Hold on. There was a nearby property owner. Mr. Fleischer, did you want to be heard?
Well, I'm the next door neighbor to the east, and I'm just not following exactly what you're doing. I can't visualize through what you're showing, how it's going to be to my west. From the description, and I can't blow up these site plans, so it's very difficult for me to interpret anything. I just hope it's something that you can put together that's easy to live with. That's all.
So they have, we're going to try and maybe see if Deirdre can stretch this site plan here to, you said you had a property directly to the east?
Yes, I'm on Herkimer between I guess the property line here right to Saxon Avenue.
Do we want to get name and address on the record?
Yes, name and address, please.
Yeah, Stephen Fleischer. I'm at 71 Saxon Avenue in Bay Shore, and this is Fleischer Tube Distributors next door.
Could you just spell the last name? I only have a little bit showing up.
FLEISCHER.
Very much.
So there's some buffer planting according to these plans between the easterly side of the proposed one-story frame storage garage and then the garage between you and so 10 feet approximately, if I'm correct, if I'm reading this correctly, of buffer plantings.
That's the 10 feet?
That's the
10 feet's the plants?
It's showing 10 feet of buffer planting, if I'm reading this correctly, yes.
So it's our edge, 10 feet of plant, and then it all begins.
Yes. Correct.
And that is a compliant side yard.
That's a what?
It's a compliant. They're not here for the side yard over there on that side. That's compliant.
And the structure that's going up 28 feet is going to be right to Herkimer Street, and then there's like an easement, or it's just as it's seen now, half of the street, because I think half of Herkimer is gone already.
Well, they, as they said earlier in the application, they're proposing 28.6 feet, but the code states 18. So we don't have the, Mr. Benesso, the applicant's attorney, is going to try to provide some research for height in the area. There will be a 10-foot buffer to the north also. And I'm being told from the applicant, we're all being told that Herkimer Street, they're going to sell that, the whole street off to the property up on the north or northwest that someone's selling off to a private entity. And that will basically be a rear yard technically, not Herkimer Street anymore because it's closed at that point. They're selling the whole, they're not taking 25 feet of it.
Well, when we first built our building in 73, and with the property line, everything west was supposed to be wetlands. Obviously, that's changed.
Yeah, they do have DEC approval for the garage, the proposed one-story masonry frame garage. They have that already from DEC.
So what you're selling to the north and west of, past his property, not this property, is how far east is that going to go?
I'm not selling that, sir. I don't know that for a fact. I know that they were talking about in the beginning, this application's been around for quite some time, taking half of the road and giving it to the applicant and taking the other half road and dividing it to the north. That has since changed according to the applicant regarding that the town proposed them to not take any of the road and propose these buffers and
right,
all the rest of
it's the first time hearing that you're selling this other property. I think.
I'm not selling anything, sir. I'm just going there.
My understanding, having had conversations with the town attorney's office, the property to the north of Herkimer is the subject of a sale from the town to a private entity. And that along with that goes the northerly half of Herkimer that was abandoned and joined to that northerly lot. The reason for the request that we not go forward with the abandonment of the southerly portion, the southerly 25 feet of Herkimer Street, was to provide continued access to that lot to the north over what would be still theoretically Herkimer Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything further to say, sir?
No, I don't.
No? Any further questions?
I don't, no. I hope to understand it and hope to be a good neighbor.
Well, there is some time we got to take a vote on it, but we're going to, I'm assuming, reserve it, and the applicant has some time to give some post-hearing submissions, and then we're going to sit as a board and go through the whole application. So sometimes if you have any questions, you can always call our office and ask the questions to the staff.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else wish to be heard in this application?
Just really quick, sorry. I did look up the height for industrial 1 and industrial 2. Because it's a accessory building, it can only go up to 18 feet. So if it was the main building, it could go up to, I believe, 60, but the accessory is limited to 18. That's it. I just wanted to say that quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reserve decision, but our 62 days will start 30 days from now to give the applicant time to submit more documentation.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application reserved. We'll hope to hear from you soon, Mr. Benesso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
You guys all have a great night.
Yes. John,
Yes, sir.
could we take about a 3-minute break? Necessity requires.
Sure can.
You can continue without me if you want. That's your call.
Do we have Mr. Messina back in?
I'm here, but remember, I'm recused on this.
We just reserved.
Oh, okay.
We're
Fine.
going on to the next one, Vinny. We're going on to the next one.
Very good. I didn't hear a vote. I apologize.
No problem.
All right, so the next application is 396-20, Francis S. and Vanessa A. Russo. Permission to leave pool patio having rear yard occupancy of 47.33% instead of permitted 30%, and a pool having a building separation of 5 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residence A District, northwest corner of Locust Avenue and Peconic Street, Ronkonkoma, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is Dieter Speck, Spectacular Pools, whose office is at 265 Brookfield Avenue, Riches. I built the pool and the patio on this project, and I'm here before you to try to get this fixed.
All right, so you know, how you doing, Mr. Spector? Everything good tonight?
How's it going?
Good. You know, we, code says 30, we permit up to 40%. You heard that before with rear yard occupancy?
I have heard that. Is there any changes on smaller yards, or is it the same whether you have a larger yard or a smaller yard? Because once you put a dinner table in and a couple of lounge chairs, there's really no space. It's not like that.
What I was gonna say is, I know we've heard in the past being, if you, Deirdre, can you put the aerial up on this?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I'm talking to Deirdre from planning. Do you have the aerial up on it? Can you put one up on here?
Can you see it's this house on
Yeah,
the corner?
right there. So I know we've heard in the past when there's a second front yard and a side yard behind, and the pool's completely behind the house. If we were to utilize that second front yard area, which we've done in the past, I believe, that rear yard occupancy would drop considerably. Am I correct with that, Mary?
Yes, if we factor in the green space, we'll say in the second front yard into the rear yard. So corner lots are particularly penalized by the second front yard that's behind the house not being included in rear yard occupancy. So if that lot were an interior lot and not a corner lot, the rear yard occupancy would be substantially lower than that proposed.
Sure. So this is the case with this property. We have that side lot, that second front yard that has some green space in there. And I think we've heard this before, and I think we've used it, we've rendered a decision with that written clearly in it, the reason why we allowed that. Deirdre, are you able to quickly calculate what the rear yard occupancy would be if we were utilizing that green space, or you couldn't?
I was trying to look into it. It did seem like it was still a little bit above 30% if the area was utilized. The only hesitation planning has in general is you can technically add a driveway there. So we'd be fine allowing up to this amount with regard to adding the second front yard technically, because it's also a backyard. If there could be a condition just that they don't pave over that area or add any more pavers into that side, second front yard.
Is that something that your client will adhere to, Mr. Speck?
Yes,
You understand what we're saying? Utilizing some of that green space in that second front yard,
I understand. They're not going to add any more patio there. I understand.
or a driveway or another?
Absolutely.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Selvin, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Application granted, Mr. Speck. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks for your time.
Next application, number 397-20, Regina Estrada. Permission to leave one-story addition approximately 20 feet by 20 feet, having a side yard of 6 feet instead of required 14 feet. To leave the second-story deck having a rear yard of 22 feet instead of required 25 feet. To leave 2 sheds not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. And to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Isletown Code, Section 68-602, with a driveway having a width of 26 feet instead of the permitted 18 feet. Residence B District, east side of Evergreen Avenue, number 396, 119.02 feet southwest of Applegate Drive, Central Islip. Is anyone here for the applicant?
She's here. Asking her to start her video. There we go. Hello, Regina.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Name and address for the record, please. I got the whole family there. How you doing?
Yes, hello. Yes. Yeah, my name is Regina Estrada. My address is 396 Evergreen Avenue, Central Isley, New York, 11722.
How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm here, just waiting.
You guys are going so quick. It was going so well.
Yes. It won't count. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. So we have a one-story addition that is a little too close in one corner of the property, 6 feet instead of required 14.
Yes,
How long
so
ago was that built?
So that's the garage, and it has been there since my parents moved in 87, 89. And with the curvature of the land, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, it appears a pie shape, and it's just the rear corner, correct?
Yes. So it was like, I guess the house like had burned down like in the 80s. They rebuilt it, and when they rebuilt it, it had that garage with that shape.
Sure. You have two sheds that are not technically behind the front, 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. How long have the metal and the frame shed been up?
They've also
They
been
also been there
like
forever.
forever. We've had to paint them because of
Only one speaking at a time. We can't take a clear record. I'm sorry.
sorry. Yes, the sheds have also been there pretty much the whole time. We've had to like paint them because of rules and whatnot.
So the code prior to, I believe, 2002 or 2003 had a shed having to be 10 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. It has since changed to 20 feet. So possibility that maybe that metal shed gets moved behind the frame shed?
Behind the what?
The metal shed that's in the front of the frame shed? See that metal shed right there?
Behind the fence.
It's behind the
the frame shed. This one behind this one. Over here.
Oh, it's there. I mean, we could tear it down if we can't have it there. It's old. It's been there since 89. So the possibility of moving it, we would just take it down if we can't, keep it there.
And you have a second story deck, a little bit 22 feet instead of 25. Again, the shape of your property is somewhat.
Yeah, it's a very curious shape. When they bought the property, that little corner piece wasn't even there.
Mr. Chairman, if I can what I'm concerned about the one-story addition, I understand it's a peculiar shaped piece of property, but you buy the property and the house has got to fit. And when you build without benefit of a permit, you may have issues. I'm looking at the survey, as we all are, where it says it's 6 foot from the property line. What is it at I guess that would be the westerly portion, the thicker portion? What's the distance there? I don't think any of it complies.
Well, it's probably, I don't have the ruler with me, but I'm approximating it as probably 10 to 12 feet from the property line. Does anyone have a ruler, Mary, or?
I'm sorry, I forgot to send you the scale.
It's all
Deirdre,
right.
can you scale that out?
See, I'm getting yelled at. It's a scale, not a ruler.
I'll send it next time if you call it the right thing.
All right.
So while she's doing that, my concern is it's a greater than 50% relaxation. And are we going?
It's just a southerly corner, though.
No, but none of it complies.
Well, we don't know that. I bet you that front northwesterly corner is probably close to complying.
Well, it either complies or it doesn't. And when I say none of it complies, being close, it doesn't comply. My statement is accurate.
Well, that's why we're
So
at this
what
meeting.
I'm saying is that, are we now going to allow this throughout the neighborhood? I don't think it's good zoning.
I don't disagree with you, but however, we do have a peculiar shaped property and we do have one, I believe, what Deirdre's gonna strike it out right now, measure on the scale with us right now, that's
Yeah, but
possibly almost near compliance in that front corner.
But if so, it's one tiny part of it. As you head east or toward the backyard, it's just ever more non-complying. It's not like where you have a property where sometimes we see the corner throws it, everything else is good. There's just one corner that butts into it. This is probably, and when we get the scale, or I call it a ruler too, we got the ruler, we'll see probably 95% of it is non-compliant. If any of it is
I
compliant.
think that's extreme. The front corner is about 12
Well, let's,
feet.
the math's not gonna lie. Let's find out what that distance is. But to go from 14 feet to comply to 6 feet, I don't think it makes it. But even if it does, let's say that very corner.
Deirdre, keep that
is
parallel,
14
that
feet.
line parallel.
Let's say the very corner at the widest is 14 feet, which I don't think it is. Then it diminishes every
Here to here?
inch afterwards. So this is something that's mostly not complying. We've granted when the corner sticks out a little bit, but this is the reverse. If it was the inverse, we'd say, oh, that's okay, it's just a corner. What you're saying, Mr. Chairman, is, well, the whole thing doesn't comply, and it goes from maybe the very beginning of compliance, just the tip, all the way to horribly non-complying, but it's just a corner. That's inaccurate.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the property is peculiarly shaped, and the front corner of the property, as you see what Deirdre measured right now, is 11.7 instead of 14. And just the rear back corner is 6. And yes, I get what you're saying, that it diminishes. However, the property's pie shaped and the rear of the property's cut in. And it's been like this for 35 years.
I don't know if that
I
makes
think we can write this in a way that would not change the nature and character of the neighborhood and would not.
I don't think we can. How would we write it when somebody has the same application? What would we say? No. Additionally, the house.
How many corner properties? How many properties like this in the area? Pull the aerial up. In the area are like this.
I'm sure there's others. I mean, listen, that's not the point. The point they're making is the house.
The point is that if someone else can come to us and say, you know, that person had it. Well, they don't have. They're not going to have the same property as this. The applicants have.
They're going to say, look, I want to bump out just 5 feet, and you granted them. Look, somebody smart would say they encroach 80% of it. So 80% of 20 feet would be 16 feet. I only want to bump out 5 feet. I only want to bump out 9 feet, and it's going to be endless. And it doesn't matter the shape of the property. But what I was going to also say is when a permit was given to that house, whenever it was, the house complied. Whoever built that addition without benefit of permit made it non-compliant. And now say, well, treat me as though I have another, 12 feet of property. They don't.
The applicants are not saying that. They purchased the property in the 80s.
Well, it's that you know that they're held to the standard.
I understand that, but we're allowed to disagree on it. I'm just saying that if the entire property was 6 feet along the side property line, I would say I agree with you 100%. But
what happens if 90% of it is non-compliant? That's still okay?
That's not the case here.
We don't know. We're still waiting for the numbers.
We just told you the front corner is 11.7, and yes, it fades back, but it's a pie-shaped property.
So wait, the front corner is 11 what?
11.7.
So none of it complies. So it goes from non-complying to offensively non-complying.
Since we were talking about the history of when it was built, though, until 1988, it only needed to have 10-foot side yard.
Okay, but that's now. So before the argument was, well, most of it complies, and it only goes down to 6 feet. And I took the counter argument, just looking at it. No, I differ. I don't think any of it complies.
Right, so
and if any did, just that tiny. Now, even at its best, it's non-compliant.
All right, so we're going to go round and round. So why don't we just reserve and possibly discuss it
Sure.
in our executive
Sure.
meeting, and then we can have that. The issue of reserving, though, is that I'm sure they are looking for this accessory apartment, which they're going to have to wait.
If we could talk about the accessory apartment for a second, if you haven't already. It's on the other side of the house.
Yep. On the other side of the house, and the driveway apparently is, according to the Width of 26 instead of permitted 18.
Yeah, they're measuring it from side to side as 26 feet at the property line.
And is the applicant in agreement that they're going to have to take it down to the opening of what's 24 feet we usually go with?
We can do that again because it curves a little, like we had made it for more space. And when we went with the building department for the code, they didn't give us any problem because 4 cars could fit and you could still have space for a heavy set person or any kind of person to, you know, put their car and move around the property.
I think what the chairman is saying though is that you just have to make it at the curb to be 24 feet. You can still keep the width at the rest of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so just
So
at
you
the
mean
curb.
at the point, could you just point to the curve that you mean? Oh, that curve to go in a little.
Deirdre,
Yeah,
can
go
you,
with 24.
Deirdre, can you, because this is such an odd shape, Deirdre, would you mind drawing on there the 26 feet that I believe that zoning measured is 90-degree angles? Yes, from there straight across, not along the radial distance. The radial distance would have been even longer than 26. So they are to the perpendicular. Thank you. I believe that's the 26 feet that zoning measured.
Okay, so you're asking us to make it smaller?
The board will grant you up to 24 feet. So perhaps you just need to make sure with zoning where they believe the 24 feet
would land.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we clarify that, Mr. Sarah?
Okay.
All right, and
You
then
see what I mean about
because
the
we're gonna
radius?
reserve anyway, so let's make that part of the decision.
Okay. Because that's the highlighted portion there, that's curvilinear.
Yeah, I
It's called
understand.
a radial distance, and that radial distance would be more than 26 feet. So not
So
quite. Sure.
you want us to put grass in front of the drive, like the driveway?
You'd have to take the curb cut and bring it in to measure 24 feet on the curb.
But only at the curb, not at for the entire driveway.
I see. So you want like that little corner to be grass?
It just has to be narrower.
Yeah, it's been more narrow.
So yes, it should be grass. Yes.
So it'll
grass.
be grass. Okay.
Well, AstroTurf is
24
fine.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
To make that curb area, this area right here has to be 24 feet opening. It can flare out and you can keep the width here of the driveway, but just right here has to be, where the yellow line is, has to be. like that.
But not the front of the yellow line.
The opening where the yellow line draws across. So this is concrete driveway. It says L equals 130.
Yeah, so that yellow line has to be grass?
No, that has to measure 24 feet opening.
Oh,
I
24.
see.
It's measuring 28 now.
Okay.
It's measuring 26, I'm sorry, 26 now. So it has to come in 2 feet.
I see.
Okay. So we're gonna see if anyone should be heard in this application. We discussed the shed. You said you'd move the metal shed back behind the front line of the, behind the frame shed, or remove it totally. We talked about that. We're gonna reserve, I believe, decision. We have to take a vote on it regarding the 1-story addition. So we're gonna have some time to discuss it before we render a decision. Do you understand?
I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand like both sides of the story. I mean, we understand it. It's just, you know, it has been there and the property is an odd shape. It just seems a little silly to tear down something that's literally been there 30-something years.
But it's been there 30-something years illegally, and that's Mr. Wexler's point. And you know, you can't deny that. And that's the problem. Had you gone with a permit, then it wouldn't be an issue. Or had you had this variance hearing 30 years ago, it wouldn't have been an issue probably.
I
But
mean,
the
I guess, you know, I
fact
understand.
is that you built something without a permit, and there are consequences to that. And hopefully they won't be too harsh, but they may be. So, you know, it's not just that, oh, this
Yes,
is there
no,
for
and
forever,
we
leave it.
didn't build it. Like it
Well,
was.
I understand, but it was there without a permit. And so, you know, Mr. Bucks's point is well taken. So is yours. It is a uniquely shaped parcel. And you're right about that. And we have to weigh those two things and come out with hopefully a just answer.
Yes, and even like the land itself, like it is not like flat lands, like our neighbors stand about like 10 feet from the ground from us. So there's actually a wall there. It's not like a fence. It's an actual
That's noted on the survey. Yeah, I see that concrete
wall of
wall.
concrete that literally covers the whole length of that, the whole height of that garage. Like the
No,
garage.
that's an important point. Okay, thank you.
We're gonna discuss it. We have 62 days by law. We're gonna do it as quick as we possibly can to render a decision for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
So then we're at this point, we're done with today's meeting.
Yep,
Yeah.
you'll get something in the mail from us once we render a decision. We have an executive meeting and render a decision.
And in the meantime, we should fix what we already know is, the issue.
Yeah, the metal shed's gonna have to be removed or put behind the
We'll
fence.
remove it. It's not,
And the concrete driveway is the opening of the concrete driveway is gonna have to come down to 24, not 26.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
all right, thank you very
Alright.
much.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application?
Mr.
I'm sorry?
Chairman, I'm sorry. Could we get the name of the daughter that's been speaking?
Sure.
I'm Carla
Carla.
Guerrero.
And address, please?
20 Antler Lane in South Setauket, New York 11720.
Could you just spell your last name for me, please?
Yes, it's Guerrero, and it's Carla with a C.
Thank you so much.
Right. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? I make a motion to reserve decision.
Second.
So we're reserved. We have 62 days. We'll get it done as quick as we possibly can.
Thank you.
very
Have a
much.
nice
You
Have
have
a
a-
great night.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
All right. Next application number 398-20, Vito Riportella and Emily Ann Yesgieri. Permission to erect two-story dwelling on a lot having an area of 10,000 square feet instead of the required 11,250 square feet, leaving a front yard of 25 feet instead of the required 40 feet, side yard of 11.3 feet instead of required 14 feet, total side yards of 25.3 feet instead of the required 28 feet, floor area ratio of 31.6% instead of the permitted 25% Residence A District, east side of Sequams Lane West, number 107, 644 feet north of Sequams Lane West, terminus, West Islip, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, good evening. This is Justin Light of Light and Russell, and I represent the applicants.
Good evening, Mr. Light.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
How are you tonight?
Well, thank you. Thank you. So first time, I only see myself, but I'll just start talking until you tell me to stop.
Stop.
We can hear you.
Stop.
Stop.
Go ahead, Mr. Light. I was only kidding.
No, thanks, Mr. Messina. In any event, I represent Vito and Emily. They're engaged. They're third generation West Islip people. Their parents live within a stone's throw of the property. They just recently purchased the property to begin to build a home in their family. They bought it in October 2019. As I said, Vito's been raised in West Islip. They're both 28 years old, him and Emily. The property is a little bit undersized. It's only 80 by 125 or 10,000 gross square feet. And that's part of the variance because it has to be 12,500. It is waterfront property. It's on a canal. The property sustained some extensive damage after Hurricane Sandy. And as a result of it, it had to be raised, and that's why it's being reconstructed. As an ancillary note, in the deed or the property that they purchased, there's a recorded reversionary interest, which put a little pressure on us that if my clients do not reconstruct the home by February of 2021, they could lose the property, revert to the federal authorities that lent money, which is similar to the Rising program. But they are entitled to ask for an extension, but they have to show some substantial compliance. So we are anxious to proceed. And as I said, my client just purchased the property in October, so we're moving as quickly as we can.
Mr. Light, if I could just ask you, there was a home there before
There was.
and
Yeah.
Sandy damaged it?
Yeah, tremendously, where it could not be resurrected or renovated. There was
And how
no,
does this footprint differ, if it does, from what was there?
well, actually, the footprint that was there originally had greater encroachments, both on the side and to the front. But this it's a bigger structure. It's a newer structure. It conforms to other houses in the area, I believe, and there's precedence in the area for the type of the house. It's not extensively big. It's a 31.6% FAR, but it's going to be a beautiful structure. And as I said,
Do we have precedent? I mean, this is West Islip. We all know this area. Do you have handy precedent of 31.6?
Do I have? I don't, but I believe that the planning board does because I've met with them, or Deirdre May. I've spoken to her, so I don't have exact houses. I did submit some photographs that show houses that are greater than the required 25% FAR, but I don't know exactly. I know they're over 30%. I don't have the specifics.
We could probably make life a lot easier for all of us if we ask Mr. Chairman, if we can ask Deidre if there's precedent for this size structure and FAR.
Did you hear us?
Yes, there is precedent. It seems like the last few applications actually were asked to cap at 31.6. So they're right at the cap for all the.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The other survey, just to answer your questions, does have more extensive setbacks. The other dwelling, I apologize, than the proposed dwelling they have here now. I'm looking at the survey.
Right, the one on screen right now is the proposed. I could show, this is the one that was there previously, I'm assuming.
Wow.
So this one had a side yard of 4.1 and a little bit more extreme than the 11.3, I believe they're asking for.
And the planning's okay with the 10,000 instead of 11,250? Because the house is already.
There's a few that were asking for the same, a lot area of 10,000. There's actually a few that had asked for a lot area of 9,000, 700 around that area. So this is perfectly in the nature and character.
Right. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Application granted. Who keeps screaming like that? Is that Chris?
Yeah,
Thank you very
I
much.
just want to make sure you hear me.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, good night.
I'm on a cell phone with no reception in East Islip. I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
All right.
All right, next application, number 399-20, Gary William Bowens. Permission to erect detached garage 20.25 feet by 28.45 irregular, leaving a rear yard of 1.83 feet and side yard of 1.83 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Residence B District, west side of Locust Avenue, number 2872, 260 feet north of Woodlawn Avenue, Ronkonkoma. Is anyone here for the applicant?
They are. We're just moving them into panelists. Here we go. Okay.
Good evening.
Yes,
Name and address of record, please.
Gary William Bowens, 2872 Locust Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779.
How are you tonight, sir?
Good.
So you're here, the call says permission to erect, but it appears that you're just rebuilding a garage that was CO'd right in the same place that it is, correct?
Correct.
So it's CO'd on property, you're not going any larger than the footprint was on the CO?
It's not any larger. We actually agreed to slightly reduce it to meet some requirement that you wanted.
All right, that sounds good.
That's some requirement. Is always a bugger,
requirement.
I'll tell you.
And it is CO'd on the property, as I said, for the record. Look at that. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Application granted. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Sir. Application number 400-20, Carrera Properties, permission to erect one-story addition 12 feet by 26.22 feet, leaving a side yard of 10.14 feet instead of the required 14 feet. Residence B District, north side of Claremont Avenue, 512.2 feet west of Stein Drive, Bay Shore, New York. Anyone here for the applicant?
Yes. Nara, can you hear us?
On mute?
Yep, we've
Good
got
evening.
you.
Good evening.
How are you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board?
Good evening. How are you tonight? Name and address for the record, please.
Very good. Gennaro Cozzolino, 2125 Deer Park Avenue, Deer Park, New York, 11729.
Great. You're here seeking permission to erect a one-story addition, leaving side yard 10.14 instead of required 14.
Correct. I came into this application a little late in the project. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I just wanted to know if it requires a aggregate side yard also, which wasn't part of the call.
Zoning typically won't say that that would be an aggregate situation. They would say it if it's stretched across the entire back of the house. So if the addition itself both required side yard setbacks.
Okay, so it just needs a side yard setback.
Yeah, but if you're worried about it, the board can note that they're aware that the aggregate is only about 20 feet, right?
20 feet, correct.
We can note that in the decision if the board has no problem with that. Without amending the call.
Mr.
Okay,
Costello,
very
is there any precedent in the area that you know of for the relief?
I've seen few houses that have similar setbacks, but I'm not positive if.
You know we
planning-
can't go off of what you've seen, you know that.
No, I understand.
Deirdre from planning, are there any precedent in the area?
Yes, there's a few precedent. There's side yards for 9.6, 9.7, and 9.2.
Right.
Okay.
Well, staying in line with the front and the rear dwelling. Nothing precedent for the side yard. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the application.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Application.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
You
Take
too.
care.
Application number 401-20, Maria D. Vieira Sanchez. Permission to erect one-story addition 24.4 feet by 34.3 feet, connecting detached accessory structure to dwelling, leaving rear yard of 5.8 feet instead of required 25 feet, to leave 6-foot fence on property line, not having required setback of 10 feet, and to establish accessory apartment pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-602, Residence A District, northwest corner of Garden City Street, number 59, and Martinstein Avenue, Bay Shore. Is anyone here for the applicant?
She is here
Yes.
with us. There we go.
All right, welcome.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jose Vasquez. I'm here with my mother, Maria Vieira.
How are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So you're seeking permission to erect a one-story addition, to connect accessory structure.
Yes,
So you have an accessory structure back there, you're gonna make an addition and connect it?
actually, I barely can hear you. I'm sorry.
So you're gonna connect the accessory structure you have with the one-story addition to your main dwelling?
Yes,
And what reason is that? Your accessory structure holds a different setback when it's connected to the dwelling.
well, it was a detached garage, and actually, we need some additional room in the house, so that's why we're trying to connect it to the part of that garage to convert it to the just part of the living space of the house.
Yeah, but once you connect it, sir, it goes to a much more aggressive setback than it is being detached. You understand that?
No, not really.
So, Mary, what's the setback of a detached structure? Is it,
Well, for this
Without
one, it'll
the
only be 4 feet. It's less than 500 square feet.
so without it being attached, you only have a 4-foot rear yard setback to code, because you're less than 500 square feet. Once you attach it, you now have to have a 25-foot rear yard setback, which you don't hold right now.
Okay, and so pretty much I have to able to have that extension, I have to knock down that to have the setback of 25.
Well, I don't even know what your existing structure holds right now.
Well, what precedent is there in the area for setbacks, if we know?
If you're asking me, I do not
No,
know.
I'm asking Ms. Ryan.
Okay, sorry. For setbacks for rear yards, I didn't find anything.
No variances of any kind at all.
Not for this, I don't think I found any for rear yards in general, but I could check again, but definitely not for a 5.8 rear yard.
Well, I wouldn't think there would be a 5.8, but yeah, if we had a number at 10, we could tell this gentleman, hey, you need to cut it back to 10 feet or what have you. But if there's none, then there's none, and that's a whole different issue.
May I make a suggestion to the applicant, please?
Sure.
Why doesn't he go back to his architect, see what he can design as an addition to the house, meet with Deirdre to kind of figure out where an acceptable setback would be, because since we don't have that in front of us, and come back to us with something else.
You understand that, sir, with Mr.
Yes, I
Nicole?
did.
I'm sorry, it's very hard for me to talk through a phone. I hope you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, so would you like to take an adjournment possibly and speak with planning and speak with possibly your design professional in order to try and figure out another?
And improve your chances of success here.
Yes.
Right.
All right, well, good. Thank you very much. The
Mr. Chairman,
adjournment is
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms.
So,
Pissarro, we'll let you know.
Yeah, once you speak with your architect and planning, you can contact our office and set up another date.
all right, will do. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
have
you,
a
sir.
good day. Take care.
Number 402-20 Eastfield Ventures Incorporated. Permission to subdivide lot into 2 parcels, resulting lots not having required 75 foot of width throughout. Residence A District, east side of Comac Road, formerly number 249, 606.15 feet south of 47th Street, Islip, New York. Is anyone here for the applicant?
Coming in right now. Hi, Chris.
Hi, guys. Christopher Ang, 93 Main Street, West Sayville, New York, representative for the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Thang. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
If I could just interject 1 second, while everyone can hear me, who's still attendees, there are 4 attendees in present, maybe 5, that want to be heard. I'm going to move them in when you guys ask me to, after Chris makes his presentation, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Thang.
Good evening. We are asking for permission to subdivide a 1 3/4 acre lot into 2 parcels of approximately 1 acre for the south lot and 3/4 of an acre for the north lot. The required width of 75 feet is met at the front of the property, but because of the shape of the property towards the middle of the property, it gets reduced down to 54 feet on the south lot and 52 feet on the north lot. Everything else, the proposed dwelling, we meet all the requirements for zoning on the proposed dwellings. We're not requiring any zoning requirements on that. So yeah, the one thing that we're asking for is a reduction on the lot width towards the middle of the lots, down to 52 feet and 54 feet.
Need all the wetland buffering and the point of clearing and all that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
At all the wetland buffering? The rear?
Yeah, we meet all the buffers for the wetlands. We are not touching that portion of the property. We're removing the building that's back there, and all of our construction is towards the front of the lots.
And Mr. Rang, wait, if I understand this correctly, even if this were to remain as a single lot, you can build the structure as close as you're building a structure, or you're proposing to build the structure here, because you make all the setback requirements, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's no adverse impact on adjoining neighbors by virtue of either A, the subdivision itself, or B, the setback relief. Well, there would be no relief, the setback requirement with respect to this two proposed structures.
That's
Right?
correct, Mr. Messina.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Can I interject for 1 moment? I believe that back in 2013, I may have consulted with the previous owner or maybe a potential purchaser on this on this possible application. It's hard for me to tell without seeing an aerial, given that I don't have access to my computer at this point. As a result, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this consideration of this application. Yeah, so I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting at this point. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Let the record show Mr. Napoleon recused.
Done.
I'm sorry, I had a dog barking. Did he recuse himself from the entire meeting, for the rest of the meeting?
I hope not.
No,
No,
from
No,
this,
I think
from this
just this
application.
application.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
No problem. So does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Mary, I said, you know, you had some people that wanted to.
They do. I'll promote them right now. We could just ask you all to just go one at a time.
Name and address for the record, please, when you do. When you are.
Hi, can you guys see me? Can you see me?
We can. How are you?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. How are you?
Good.
This is Christina Rhodes, RHODES, at 231 Camelot Court in Islip.
How are you doing?
And I am at the townhouses just south on Camelot Court. So I'm joining because right now that is an unoccupied parcel of land, which is pretty small, it seems, for two houses, but I'm concerned about the variance that would be approved. Right now it's tree lined and serene next to our property. So what I feel, if these two parcels of land are built, we're basically going to be looking at the side of this house that's right on top of our property. And at the very least, I'm just requesting that they leave some sort of a tree line on the side or some sort of a buffer, so that not only for our sake, but the people that move in there, the way that our court is, our streetlights would be basically shining right into the windows of this first house. That's the side windows of this first house. So, I mean, on, thinking of them also, but also for us, at least to not diminish the value of our property. We're just requesting at least to have some sort of a buffer or leave the remaining trees that are there in between that house and our house. And the other concern I know you mentioned is the wetlands. Right now we do have like flooding issues. I know the town has been out here a couple of times, and we've had some flooding issues with the wetlands coming up to the back of our property. So we're just really concerned. I know this is set forward onto Comac Road, but we're just concerned about if there's going to be any impact with another property going up that would cause any additional flooding, because the town has been out here many times and it's still not rectified. When it rains heavily for even a day or half of a day, the water is really close to our development. So I don't know if, I know that the properties are going to be forward, but is there any way that we can get some sort of an environmental survey done prior to the building of the residence?
Appreciate your concerns. They're only in front of us tonight for the subdivision into 2 parcels, resulting in the lot size and the width throughout. They have already met, I believe, all of the wetlands bufferings and setbacks. They don't require us for any side yard setbacks or front yard setbacks. They just require us for not having the required width throughout both of the parcels. So that would be something that we're not hearing that tonight, which your concerns are, which I understand.
That's exactly what you said.
Can I offer one answer for that? Is that all the runoff for our buildings are going to be contained on our property, and it will not run off of the property.
That's by engineering requires you to
By
have that,
engineering
right, Mr. Ray?
requirements.
That's right.
Did you understand that, Ms. Rhodes?
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand that is the variance in between the 2 buildings? Is that what you're saying?
No.
The variance is
No, ma'am.
it's lots width throughout.
And it meets it at the front. It just gets a little narrower toward the back. So it's only a small portion with respect to the width that needs a variance on one of the lots.
Is the owner planning to, with how narrow this property is, are they planning to rip down all of the trees right now that are between our court and the first building to the south?
No, our intent is to keep as much natural vegetation as we can on the property.
Okay.
Can I see something?
Yeah, please.
Can you hear me?
Sure, just 1 second. Ms. Rhodes, are you done with all your questions?
Yes, thank you.
If you can just give us your name and address for the record, we can listen to your comment.
Alex Killian, 233 Camelot Court.
How are you tonight?
I'm also on the board. Paul Fallon is with me. He's from 229, 227 Camelot Court. His wife Kathy and Roberta Whitehorn.
239 Camelot Court.
So, you know, it's interesting because all of our complexes, aesthetically, we are completely surrounded by greenery. And we face somewhat into the area where the southern house is meant for. I don't understand how, if they only have 15 feet to the property line, that you can guarantee that they're going to keep the foliage there.
Well, ma'am, do you understand that they could build that now on that property if they were building a single structure without subdividing? They could build that right now in the same location as of right, and they wouldn't have to be here.
Okay.
But they're not doing that.
Well, but it's the same effect. That's the point. It's the same exact effect. It would be no different than if they built something as of right on the parcel that's there now.
We're worried about our quality of life.
No, I understand that. I'm merely pointing out that the law allows right now, as it sits, for them to build a structure exactly as close as the closest structure is proposed to you.
Right, but we have a beautiful tree line that separates our property from that property. And we're very concerned about privacy. We're very concerned about maintaining the aesthetic of our little development. And we're very concerned about noise because they're going to be literally right on top of us. And I'm the first house that's going to be their next door neighbor. And we already have noise issues in the neighborhood with the development just north of that. So we're concerned that at the very least, we would like to maintain a visual and a sound buffer between that first house and us, and to preserve the character of the very green area that we are.
They meet all, I understand your concern, but they meet all the side yard setbacks for that first dwelling. They're not here in front of us for that tonight. So we would not be able to change what they're here in front of. They meet that already by law.
But the narrowness of the lot brings them closer to our houses.
No, it doesn't, ma'am. That's the point. It doesn't bring it any closer than the law allows. They're not seeking any variance whatsoever from that requirement.
It's in the backyard where it gets narrow, not where the house is relative to the property line.
So what you're saying, my name is Paul Fallon, 227 Camelot Court.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, so what you're saying is if they put one house there, they'd be able to put it in the same exact location as the southern house.
Absolutely correct, sir. You got it.
All right, so our only concern is that, like the privacy part of it.
Right.
Maybe they could plant some type of greenery along the property line just as a buffer. We're not trying to, stop anybody from progression or anything. Just, so that our peace is not disturbed,
You're asking them to be a good neighbor.
Yeah, that's all.
Something you could be discussed with the owners of the property. We're just here for the approval of the width of the lot. We can't have them put more buffer, put a buffer in of vegetation or what. Maybe Mr. Ang's a nice guy. I'm sure his clients are nice people also. Maybe you guys can discuss it with that at a further later date.
I'd be willing to propose that to my client.
Can I say one thing, Mr. Ang? Would you, hang on one second. Mr. Ang, do you have the addresses of the folks who are questioning the application? Do you have their addresses?
I do not.
Okay, why don't we do this, Mr. Wax? It'll be a little easier. Mr. Ang, why don't you give them now your office telephone number so they can call you and arrange a meeting?
Sure.
All right. And before you do that, what you can do is maybe you can get their address. You can send them a copy of a survey. You must have a bunch of them, and just draw a circle around the trees that you are telling us and the greenery that will remain, so they can look at it and say, aha.
We don't have that surveyed, unfortunately. We have the larger trees surveyed, but not the smaller diameter trees.
You have a survey, yes?
Yes,
So draw a line, a circle around where you intend to leave.
understood.
So this way they can look at it and say, aha. And if you don't, they can come back to you and say, this is what you said, this is what you drew. Not some sort of, I plan, I may, I could. You got it?
I
So
understand.
give me a telephone number and send them a copy of the survey and circle or put a green line so they have some sense of assurance that it will remain to the degree that it can green. Yes?
Understood.
Thank
Yes. You ready for the phone number?
Yeah, go ahead.
631-647-5025.
Can you spell your last name?
ENG.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The other thing is, the concern is getting back to the wetlands, the runoff from, I see there's a lot of dry wells around each house. They're gonna be connected to the roof drains, I would imagine.
Yeah, we, by requirement, we have to contain all our runoff from the roofs on our own property. It cannot run off our property.
So you're guaranteeing that it will not run into the stream behind us that has now formed a pond?
No, he's guaranteeing that, and he's meeting the standards that's set to him by the engineering division of the town of Islip. That's all he can guarantee. That's all anyone can guarantee.
Chris, I have a request to repeat the phone number. Did you give out 631-647-5025?
That's correct, Mary.
Okay, any further questions?
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have another one. Hold on, I have one more question in the Q&A from a neighbor who wants to know, when do you anticipate the building of these two houses to begin? And and that's why I said you, not me. And will the homes face Comac Road and have Comac Road addresses?
The The construction, we're probably going to build one at a time. We're not sure if it's gonna be an out north or south house. As far as when, I'd say within the year, we'll start one of these houses. My client is up against, trying to find out, the financing for the property.
And will they face Comac Road, Mr. Ray?
They will face Comac Road, and the addresses will have the dwellings will have a Comac Road address.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
I'm just checking with somebody who has moved to panelist but has not yet spoken. No, I don't have a comment, although I did speak to this person today, Roberta Whitehorn. Did you want to say anything else?
Hold on, shift, what is it? Shift Command A.
Aren't you the person that said you're a teacher and you're really good at Zooming?
Muted yourself.
You muted yourself now.
Alexa Killian, you muted yourself. There you go. You're
Not
back.
me. Is that it?
You got it.
Okay. you're
Okay,
good.
I'm not the one holding the mouse, but I'm here. I'm part of this unhappy group because I'm the one that's closest to this property and I'm the one that's gonna have to deal with their noise and their cars and the construction and the destruction of the serenity of my home. So I'm here and I'm unhappy, but apparently there isn't anything I can do.
No, you voiced your objection. That's what you could do.
Yeah,
And we
well,
thank you for that.
Yeah, it's not gonna do me any good though.
All right, does anyone else wish to be heard this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, actually, Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the application.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application
Aye.
granted.
It's a night of our lives. We'll never get that.
A great
All
night.
right.
And everyone
Thank you,
else?
Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you.
Next application number 403-20, Christine A. Schmoger. Permission to leave cabana with roof over 12 feet by 39 feet, not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. Leave in-ground pool having a side yard of 17.1 feet instead of the required 18 feet. To leave a driveway on side property line, not having required setback of 4 feet. And to leave patio having a side yard of 2 feet instead of the required 4 feet. South side of Ocean Avenue extension number 1, 280.17 feet west of South Ocean Avenue. Islip, is anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, let me just move them. Here we go.
Okay, just tell me when you're ready.
Good evening.
Good evening. Todd O'Connell here. I'm the architect representing the clients, the Schmogers.
Mr. O'Connell, do you put an apostrophe between the
Uh,
O's? You know, it's spelled-
No, I don't use it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Why
So
don't you
thank
use
you,
it?
I'm sorry, Bill?
Why don't you use it?
Oh, because it messes everything up. Every time I
Okay.
sign up for something, they can't find my name because of the apostrophe.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
All righty. So, thank you, members of the board. I'm here for several items here that are existing. I'll start with the pool. The pool was installed, it had a proper permit. Unfortunately, when they set the pool, they were off by inches. The pool is on an angle and a very small corner of the pool comes 9 inches too close to the property line. It was filed for 18 feet, but when they got a final survey, it came in that there were a few inches over. It all amounts to less than a half a square foot of space. So I think that's quite de minimis, and it was an honest mistake by the installer.
That's different than a former application we had where the whole house was, anyway.
Yes.
Are we really revisiting that, Mr. Wexler?
No, it's just perfect. It's the mirror image.
The rest of the a couple other items we're here for, and that's we'll go next to the paving. The paving, it's been there for quite a while. 4 foot's required, and there are some areas on the side of the house that are will start on the east side of the house which is a driveway so they could get around to the back shed, but it skews off on one corner of it. So they could essentially get the lawn mowers and trucks and, the cars around to the back to work on a back lawn area. But unfortunately, when they set the pavers, it got a little too close to the property line. And it goes from 4 feet, but then skews down to only about 1 foot on the one end. And that's just for paving. The next part of the paving is on the west side of the property. Off the pool, you actually walk down a few steps, and there's a little walkway so they could access their pool equipment. And that's where it slightly encroaches onto the side property line. It's a ground level paving system. It's only for a small section of the sidewalk. It's not the entire side yard, but it is a small section. The last thing that we're here for is the cabana. The cabana is actually attached to the house, but deemed by the building department, the attachment is not enough to consider the cabana being attached to the house. If this cabana was attached to the house, we actually would not be before you for this, for a variance, because the cabana would be there as of right at that location. In fact, about 10 years ago, this was filed for with the building department, and the owners can find the records, but supposedly the comment came back from the building department that as long as there's an attachment to, from the cabana to the house, that it could be in that location. The cabana itself, half of it's open. There's only a small enclosed portion. It's 15.5 by 12 is the enclosed portion of it. And the rest is an open air cabana, so they could enjoy their pool area. The couple houses down, the corner house actually, has an accessory structure that faces Ocean Avenue Extension. It's actually a garage, and it's actually only 6 feet off of Ocean Avenue Extension. Ocean Avenue Extension is actually a dead end, and this property is the last residence on this dead end. So it doesn't affect anybody else, where the pool or the cabana is. It's on a dead end. Across the street is a condominium complex, and in fact, the condominium complex has a tennis pavilion that is also very close to the to Ocean Avenue Extension. So, the character is in the area, we feel. I am not, alluding to whether or not those structures are legal or not. I don't know, but it's definitely, just from looking around in the area, seems to meet the general character. So that's would be my case. And with that, love to answer any questions the board may have.
The application is because it's not 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling.
That's correct, because the application was that because they deemed it to be an accessory structure, that the attachment to the home was not enough. If it was attached, which I actually could attach it, it just doesn't make sense to add more mass to it. But if I add a little bit more attachment, another couple feet, I would not have to be before the board requesting any relief.
Deirdre from planning, what say you?
There's no precedent, but because this is at the end of a dead end and it doesn't seem like it would have any impact on any neighbors or anything like that, it seems like it really wouldn't be a huge encroachment or anything like that. So no objections.
Mr. Chairman, if I may chime in, you can almost see my house from this aerial. I know this area very, very well. It's Ocean Avenue Extension. I live on Cedar Avenue Extension. I've walked up and down. I walk my dog there. So I never even noticed the cabanas. It is a dead end street. There's zero traffic. And north of it is the club, and it's the tennis court and pool pavilion. And I think we can distinguish, should we, in the future, that this is very distinguishable from what could be other applications.
The corner of the pool also?
Well, that's a different story. but I'll pass. Yes, it's just the corner of the pool, just one half square foot.
Remember that, just the corner.
One
of the-
half a
The
square foot.
rest of, can I just say, the rest of the pool complies.
Uh-huh, sure. Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any further questions? Mr. Wex, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the application, Mr. Chairman, even the little corner of the pool.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Next application number 334-20, Maria Kolodjej. Permission to leave shed 11.4 feet by 12 feet attached to detached garage on side property line, not having required setback of 10 feet, to leave shed 10 feet by 14.2 feet. Having front yard of 19 feet instead of required 20 feet, and to leave the front roof over 3 feet by 4 feet. Having a front yard of 13 feet instead of permitted encroachment setback of 20 feet, Residence B District, southeast corner of Chestnut Avenue, Woodlawn Avenue, Ronkonkoma. Is anyone here for the application?
Yes, the owner. Hi, I'm Maria Kaloje.
Hello. Look,
Got
I
my
got your name.
video?
I got your name almost right.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, we're on. We were having a hard time getting on. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Name and address for the record, please.
Maria Kaloje, 2867 Chestnut Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779.
How are you tonight?
Great, thank you.
So you're here seeking permission to leave a shed attached to a detached garage on side property line.
Yes, that is correct. Now, which, we have two sheds that we are referring to. There's one that is permanently attached to the other one. The shed is attached to the permanent garage. That's been established for like 30, it's been established and attached there for like 50 years.
We gotta speak one at a time. We're talking about the frame garage. The shed is attached to the frame garage.
Correct. Right, that is correct.
Okay. Is it attached to another garage next door to you?
It is also, yes. It's kind of weird, but it is, yes.
Yes, the two garages are attached together and there's two sheds in the back that are basically attached together as well. So
I guess your neighbor doesn't have an objection, huh?
No, he doesn't. They don't have an issue. Both neighbors in the back, they've been there for many years, and they don't have an issue with that because it's actually it's in a corner. It's in it's in a back corner of the property where it's not really visible, and nobody ever goes there. We use that shed for lawn mowers and different snow blowers and different things like that to just store items.
Is it whoever else is speaking has to give their name and address to the record too, so we have a record.
My name is Brian Connor, 2867 Chestnut Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York.
Thank you, sir. Is the detached garage and shed, is there a CO for the detached garage?
The detached, that was on the original survey that we had, the detached garage.
That's not.
It was on the original survey, and I know it was on the second survey, but that's when the paperwork burned down in the town of Islip when you had the fire.
That was Brookhaven.
No, I've heard that we had a fire in the 60s.
They did. They had a fire in the city. That's a lot of the paperwork. This, it was this property belonged to the family.
All of the towns had a fire. You don't have to worry about records.
If you're looking at the survey or the blueprint that we have up here now, if you take a mirror image of that and flip it over, we live on one corner and our neighbor next door, Eddie, lives on another corner. And the only difference is between our houses is a driveway.
Right, we just have two drivers between, and then we have the attached garage. It's-
Where are we?
it's-
Yeah, this is us right here.
Even the realtors, they said they never saw anything like that, and it's just been, you know.
It's kind of weird.
It's kind of a weird setup. It's been built in the 1930s, 40s. I don't have no clue. It's a weird setup. And then, so we have the two attached garages and two attached sheds in the back.
Okay. Deirdre from planning. Do you have any objection to the, first of all, is there any CO for that detached structure or no?
I'm not too sure about the detached structure, but I did want to point out that it does state in the call of the meeting that the detached garage on side property line not having 10 feet should be changed to 4 feet.
So amend the call of the meeting to read detached garage on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet.
Second.
Favor?
Well,
Aye.
this
Aye.
one, those is
Right.
attached to the garage, though, we have to say.
It is. They
No,
know
we
that.
just said detached.
The garage is detached and
Mr.
the shed
Chairman?
is attached to the
Right.
garage.
The garage is.
Anything else you want to consider?
No,
Guys,
we just want to clarify this. It's.
No, no,
the
no, no. I
garage-
was talking to the chairman.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. All we did, the call of the meeting was incorrect because of the size of your detached structure. You're allowed 4 feet, not 10 feet, which the call says. So it's in your benefit that we amended that call. That's all we did. You
Okay, we
understand?
just helped you.
We helped you,
Okay, great,
Okay.
thank you.
all right?
Now to
The chairman will tell you where to go now.
okay.
Deirdre, any further comments or objections with this application?
I think there is a precedent for the roof over front yard of 11.3 feet instead of 25.
Okay.
That seems minimal. The frame shed on the property line seems minimal. And the frame shed that's not 20 feet behind the front property line, it's a weird property in general. They probably can't
It
fit
is.
another shed back there.
It's 19 instead of 20, though, right?
So
So that's,
it's no objections to it either, just mostly
Right,
because
that
the property is laid out.
Yeah, that was installed. That was right, when I had a professional company install that and put that together. It was, oh, yes, it's the other one. Oh, the awning, are you referring to the awning?
no, man, we're good with that. Hang on one sec, all right?
Okay.
Deirdre, the detached structure, the garage and the shed, any objection to that?
No objections.
Does anyone wish to be heard in this application? Does the board have any questions? Mr. Sullivan, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to grant the application as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Application granted. You have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, panelists.
too. Mr. Chairman, we just, as a matter of routine, we had put application number 387-20 on for second call. Is there anyone here on that application? There being no one at this time, I'd ask that it be adjourned without date.
Okay, just give me a second, everyone. Okay. We only have 3 accessory apartments to renew tonight. They are numbers 404-20 through 406-20.
Make a motion to approve for a period of 3 years.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Now I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Ms. Pistaro.
Are we on?